Tushar Mahajan, Executive Director and Head of India F&O with Nomura Global joins us. Tushar, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Tushar, there is very little follow-up buying after a gap-up start in oil marketing stocks. Now, yesterday's news was slightly confusing. Markets were nervous about oil companies or OMCs' ability to increase prices, but all those concerns have been addressed. Despite that clarification and despite today's price hike, oil marketing stocks are off from the day's high.
I think what you saw in the morning was probably just a panic short covering post the news, so to say, post the news clarification that came in yesterday evening. For all the shorts who would have probably entered into the names yesterday. I think to your question on follow-up buying, the fact remains that the sector is fairly well liked and well owned across the street. And apart from the minor irritant of the noise per se, we are not seeing too much change on this on the ground per se. So to that extent, you're not seeing that follow-up buying coming through. But what you saw basically was just unwinding of the just covering of those shorts which would have come in based on the rumor of yesterday.
No, exactly what you said.
So it's a fairly well-owned sector to kind of warrant further.
What's the call, Tushar, that you're making on oil marketing companies? That's the big talking point this morning.
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Oil and marketing companies this morning, because after all that rush that happened at close yesterday, with all the rumors doing the rounds about the government intervening with the oil price hikes and asking OMCs to absorb it, it seems like that matter is well in the past and the stocks have renewed interest.
Yeah, so I think everything else per se is going well for the companies. They're being able to maintain their margins. They're being able to pass on price increases without any noise, so to say, to the consumers. And clearly, government has indicated that they will continue to allow for independent pricing for these companies. So all of that is good. We continue to like the space. We've been early buyers on the space, and we continue to hold on to this. Onto the space. At current levels, whether you would say that it makes sense to enter now for a sudden blip or whatever on the upside, that is something which we are not too comfortable with. But structurally, it's a story which we like and continue to own.
Yeah. Tushar, I have to ask you about the overall index as well. While the index is at, for all practical purposes, at all-time high, and the murmurs that we're picking up and looking at the F&O data as well, you can safely say that the trend is hinting towards more upside to come. But do you think from the current levels of 10,100 thereabouts, while the downside may be limited, the upside is going to be a very labored move from here? Or do you think there is hope that we could see some sharp up move coming in?
So I think, like you rightly said, while the index is at all-time highs or, close-abouts there, it doesn't really feel like that. If you look at, just overall market trends, market participation, it doesn't feel like we are in a market which is trading the way it is. Our own sense is that, the trend is clearly positive. There could be some minor short-term hiccups in the immediate future. One of them obviously being this deluge of IPOs which are coming in, and they're going to be taking away some of the liquidity. So you've got ICICI Lombard, which opens up tomorrow. You've got SBI Life, which is coming up next week, apart from a whole host of smaller IPOs. So ultimately, everyone is fighting for that same capital. So you might not, from an index point of view, you might see that some of these secondary market flows shifting into the primary market and thereby causing the markets to probably take a breather. I think the other level is again a technical level, which is close to that 10,140 levels, which have been the recent highs for the market. It might take a while before we are able to cross that level. So I think trend is definitely high. We would see more upside coming through in the markets, maybe after a brief hiatus of pause. Once the primary market issuances are kind of done and dusted with.
What about leaders in this market, Tushar? I believe you're betting essentially on Reliance Industries and banks to take the market higher from here, and if there's any promise of an upside, then that comes in from those segments.
That is correct. I think what we believe is that, you know, the good thing about the market at these levels is that leadership is coming from fairly stable and strong sectors. So between banks and you know, oil and gas, you would probably cover about 40 to 45% of the index market cap. And when those sectors are providing that leadership, you know, the trend should kind of continue to sustain. And we, you know, on the banking side, you know, clearly private sector banks are going to continue to provide the impetus, and in the oil and gas space, while OMCs could be, the refiners could be pretty much, the OMCs could be pretty much market movers. You will continue to see Reliance going up, with, you know, with the expansion in refining margins, and with all this talk about, you know, the telecom business as well, seeing a drop in cost with the interconnect charges.
Impact of Hurricane Harvey as well, and now Irma too. Okay, the stock that I want to bring up is BHEL. Look at that spike that's coming in. Here's the reason why. Newswire is indicating that on the sidelines of Shinzo Abe and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting, which is currently underway, and they're looking to launch that bullet train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai, Kawasaki and BHEL are going to make rolling stock for the bullet train. So that's the key takeaway from the Abe-Modi meet right now, and which explains this move coming in on BHEL. And you know, talking about infrastructure names, not just BHEL, Tushar, a nice smart move building in on L&T. About 6 months back, the street changed its view on Reliance Industries and L&T as the, you know, next legs or rather leaders of the rally. We've talked about Reliance, but what's the view on L&T, or for that matter even a BHEL? Not an index mover, but do you think it's now the turn of infrastructure names to play up?
I think we have seen a fair bit of interest on the infrastructure names as well. And obviously, when you speak about infrastructure, you know, the leadership kind of comes in from L&T in that space. At current levels, you know, the stock looks fairly attractive. We would be buying into any dips. But to say that leadership could come in from L&T at this point, I think we might be another 1 or 2 quarters away before we start seeing that implementation beginning to start showing its impact, and, you know, some kind of margin improvement on L&T before you take that decisive call that this is going to be the leadership provider to the market from here on.